All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for the first of our community engagement sessions surrounding District 214's facility improvement planning. My name is Scott Rowe. I am extremely proud to serve as the superintendent of High School District 214. It's my third year in this role, and I'm excited to share with you some of the really great things happening in our district. In case you're joining us this evening as a community member and not necessarily a parent with kids in our schools anymore. And so you can just learn about what are the wonderful things happening in District 214, and ultimately we'll then walk into our facility needs and in a very honest and open, transparent way share why we're here and what we're having conversation about. Our purpose this evening is this is really, we're in phase 2 of a 4-phase process, and I want to emphasize the word this is a process. It's a process of learning, a process of educating the community as to what's going on in the district, as well as learning together and getting on the same page around what the needs are in our school district and how we have tackled some of them and how we want to engage with you to help us prioritize the needs in District 214. The end goal of this evening's community engagement session is really about one, education, and then two, we'll walk through two areas of asking for feedback. And that feedback will come by way of a form that we'll ask you to take, where we'll list the 10 different categories and projects that we're considering and trying to wrestle with. And we'll ask you to help us prioritize those by ranking them from 1 to 10 after I walk through details around those projects. And then the second section of that feedback that we're asking for is going to be some of the dollar amounts that we're considering. The dollar amounts, I'll go into more detail about them. They're not specific hard dollar amounts of this is how much we plan to ask for. They're ballparks gauging levels of funding that the community may or may not be comfortable with. And there is, of course, the option of saying no funding. As I said before, this is a process, and this is about learning together and having two-way dialogue around the needs of our school district. So later in the meeting, you'll have the opportunity to answer some of the questions that you ask. So as I go through tonight's presentation, I encourage you to drop your questions in the Q&A portion of the webinar. Some members of my team that I'll introduce in just a moment will help navigate the Q&A portion at the end of tonight's presentation. So let's do that now. Let's introduce some of my team members that are here with us. I'll start with Chris Yulee. Chris Yulee is our Associate Superintendent of Activities and Operations. His office oversees all of our capital improvements, works with our maintenance staff to keep the district beautiful, as well as the long-term facilities planning that we'll be highlighting here this evening. Next, we have Dr. Justin Attaway. Justin is our CFO. He manages all finances for the district and is joining us. All right, I apologize about that. When we reconnected with our technology, I inadvertently was muted. So let me back up again and we'll reconnect to where we were. I apologize about that error. I'm going to walk through a presentation, and when we get to the Q&A portion, these gentlemen that are here tonight will help me answer the questions. So you're hearing directly from the expert that oversees that particular area. I hope that you know this, but if not, I am very excited to share some details about District 214, where we are a Center for Educational Excellence. I can tell you that we live in an area of the country with some of the very best education is offered in the public schools across the nation. And I think if you engage with us regularly, you feel that, and I certainly hope that you do. But I can tell you some stories through tonight's presentation where that's been on display, and it's really been propped up in District 214 as the Center for Educational Excellence, where we are committed to helping our students discover their future. We want every student to engage academically as well as extracurricularly in a wide variety of opportunities that we can provide for them. And we're extremely fortunate to be able to provide these opportunities for our students. We believe that learning is boundless. In our diverse community, our students are able to engage with us and broaden their horizons, like I said, in the classroom academically, if college is their path, or if they're going to go directly into the workforce or into the military. Our plan is to give them a pathway to doing so to not only learn in the classroom, but apply their knowledge in a real world experience, learning with the hundreds of community partners that we have. Having pioneered the Career Pathways program, we offer our students 40 career pathways that they can immerse themselves in on their way towards graduation. This is one of those stories that I kind of began alluding to. I recently attended a site visit with a number of other superintendents from around the country to a school district in Colorado who was highlighting a brand new innovation campus that they were very proud of. And students from all over their district came to this high school to take their career and technical education courses in 20 career pathways. And I was amazed. Their facilities were top notch. Their staff was wonderful. Their kids were amazing. Tremendous opportunities for students. But at the end of the visit, I sat back and thought, we have 6 comprehensive high schools and offer 40 career pathways, and each one of our high schools has the full complement of all the pathways in them. So our students don't have to leave their home school to have this type of realistic, real world learning experience. It may not be as shiny and brand new as a brand new high school is, as it was in Colorado, and it was beautiful, but they have tremendous learning opportunities in a wide variety of career pathways that they can immerse themselves in and follow their passion to discover their future and maybe figure out what they don't want to do, which is maybe more important than digging into their passion, because the reality is our 15 and 16-year-olds, they don't have it figured out. And that's part of our job, is to help guide them along that path. And we're so proud to do that with the ability to offer the tremendous opportunities we do. On the academic side, we're a leader in advanced placement courses and dual credit courses. All of our pathways are built with dual credit infused in them, meaning 92% of our students are graduating with some college credit. It's tremendous. About 47 or 48% of our students are graduating with 15 college credit hours at graduation. That's a full semester under their belt. Not every student is on a path to go to college, and that's certainly not our priority. We want students to take the path that best suits them. But the reality is, in today's world, our students will need some level of post-secondary learning. And this process, not only does it make it cheaper because they have a semester under their belt, some of the electives that they have to take in a 4-year or 2-year degree will be taken care of with us. But if they hit that 15 college credit hours, that's the threshold for finishing whatever degree they're pursuing. It's the staying power, the power of 15. And we are providing that for almost 50% of our students. And we have strategic priorities to increase that over time. So the investment in our kids while they're with us is not only saving them time, but it's saving them money once they head off to the next level of their learning. We're one of the largest high school districts in the state of Illinois. District 211, our neighbor, has us by about 500 students at the moment. But we're proud to offer innovative and personalized approaches to help every learner, whether it be engaging in our nanotechnology lab or the aviation program, where we're proud to have a partnership with Chicago Executive Airport and have a hangar there where students are able to learn hands-on with an airplane and flight simulators and take classes on site, to the entrepreneurial showcase course, where students are engaging in entrepreneurial business and developing, or an app showcase. So many different opportunities for our kids to engage in a path that suits their passion. And we're so proud to be able to offer that. As well, on the academic side, all 6 of our high schools have been recognized at the national level by the Department of Education as a National Blue Ribbon School. Hersey just last year, Prospect the year before, but all 6 have been recognized nationally as a Blue Ribbon School. Tremendous. This speaks volumes to the quality of staff, the dedication of our principals, the commitment of our community to really high quality education in District 214. It's an honor that we're extremely proud of. Now, all of this while maintaining in a fiscally responsible manner. We have the 3rd lowest overall tax rate, the 2nd lowest expense per pupil, and the 2nd lowest average administrator salary. And I don't want to share that as a point of pride that it's second lowest. It's very competitive. It's not low. It's of our comparable districts. It's responsible in terms of comparison of them. We're right there in reach, but we're not at the top level in all of those categories, which I think is important. And I think this is also an important place to acknowledge that that there's an elephant obviously in Illinois, elephant in the room. We live in a state that is extremely high taxed, and we all bear that burden living in the state of Illinois. And I fully recognize that in this school district, 92% of our funding comes from local property taxes. And we equate to a little over 60% of your local property tax bill. And that's not something that we take lightly. We don't enter this conversation lightly, because we believe we are good stewards of the tax dollars that we are afforded, and we're extremely fortunate to be able to work with. We have, the assessment that we're talking about this evening was conducted in 2022. So 3 years ago, we began working on this assessment, and we didn't come immediately asking for a conversation about additional funding. We wanted to tackle and find our way of what can we begin chipping away at around this assessment, so that we don't, we want to be very responsible for the tax dollars that come to us. How can we spend down our fund balance, which we have begun doing? How can we convert some of the spending that we're making in terms of energy, become more energy, conserve more energy, so those dollars can go from burning in the lights into the classrooms where they belong. And I just wanted to really reiterate, I'm sure there'll be questions at the end, but I really wanted to reiterate the district is extremely responsible with the tax dollars that we're afforded. We go to great lengths to ensure that there's great value to our families, with the students that they send to us. Because we know that the burden of taxes in Illinois is not one that is an easy burden, and we don't come to this point of engaging in conversation lightly. So now, as we shift into some of our needs, I really want to start by acknowledging. I meant to do this at the beginning, but I really want to start by acknowledging some of the conversation in the community around that number, the number of $850 million, and I'd like to take that and just at this point, acknowledge it's a big number, but that number is not the number that the district is seeking to solve today, this year, the next 2 years. That the number we're after is the number that the community is comfortable with if we get to that point. The district has not committed to seeking a referendum at this point. I said at the beginning, this is a process. This is a process for learning and engaging. We have not made our mind up that this is, in fact, we must go this route. We're asking for your feedback. That number represents the total comprehensive capital improvement facilities assessment. So we looked at all aspects of the buildings, and $850 million was the number of all needs. And I'll walk through that in a slide or two and give a little bit more detail about it. So with this aging infrastructure, as you can see in the slide in front of you, our oldest building is Prospect at 1957 when it was opened. Our youngest building is Buffalo Grove High School. It's 52 years old, which was in fact the reason for the last referendum that District 214 sought. So all 6 of our comprehensive high schools were built in that window of time from 1957 to 1972. And the photos you see on your screen, actually the photo on the right is a picture of Elk Grove High School's gym from this summer. About a week before school started, we had some significant rain, and a leak sprung in the roof above their main gym that actually not only dropped to the floor, but on the bleachers that has now deteriorated and warped some of the bleachers that are going to require some repair. Those are the types of projects that I'll be highlighting throughout this presentation this evening that we're trying to tackle. So this is the slide I probably should have shifted to and explained that. This is an image that I really would like you to really pay close attention to. The comprehensive assessment of the needs of the entire district are covered, and that's what the $850 million represents. We do not have to do all of those things. It's simply a snapshot or an assessment of all of our needs, from roofs to air conditioners to boilers to generators to windows to carpet in the classroom, And what you'll see on the screen is a red light, yellow light, green light. Red light represents something that is more imminent and needs attention in the very near future. Yellow light is something that is approaching serious need, but is not quite there yet. And green light are things that are in good condition. So you'll notice mechanicals, that's an area that needs some serious attention now. That's air conditioners, that's boilers. You'll notice some of the other areas, site work, and that might be some of the roofs and the tuck points for windows. The building envelope, excuse me, is actually the windows and the roofs. There's some considerable work that needs to be done, but it paints a picture of where the priorities are based on the independent architects that conducted this review. And you'll hear us say in our presentations, our focus is safe, warm, and dry. At the bottom line, we want to ensure that our buildings are sealed to the point where our students and staff have a healthy, safe, and as comfortable as possible way of learning and working on a daily basis. So if we shift to the classroom, some of the classrooms look very similar to what they did whenever we were in school, however many years ago that was. The picture on the top is a picture of one of our classrooms from around the district with we affectionately call those the one-armed bandit desks, the old school desks where the trouble with desks like this is modern instruction is asking for a more collaborative environment where teachers can shift and move the classroom around very easily, maybe set up a rotation of instructional rotation where they're meeting with small groups and different groups of students are doing things. It's much less a sit and get like we experienced in high school or like is happening in this moment right now. The photo on the bottom is Rolling Meadows theater that's original to the building. It's time for an upgrade in terms of lights, in terms of sound system, in terms of we're a fine arts district. We're very proud of the arts and the ability to offer the experiences we have for our students. And some of these the infrastructure in these facilities just need some attention. This is actually photos at Buffalo Grove trying to update some of the that are not ADA compliant. What you would notice if you look really closely, depending on the size of your screen, the door handles in the doors are knobs instead of handles. That's not ADA compliant. So when we touch this space, that's some of the ADA compliant work that we need to do in order to bring it up to code. We've upgraded the Elk Grove and John Hersey High School, and then Wheeling High School Student Services this coming summer. And the other three will need that same attention. And that attention is reshaping how we service students in the student services areas. We are trying to support the whole child. And in our education world, when we say the whole child, that would mean our dean, the counselors, and the social workers, and the psychologists that would share a student alphabet are supporting the students in terms of academic support, in terms of social emotional support, in terms of the behavioral aspects of being teenagers in a school, and how do we wrap that support in a one-stop shop for our students. So as we touch these spaces, we're redesigning them to support students in a more modern support system that we aspire to be. So this image is an image of Buffalo Grove and their student service space. So our fire alarm systems are obsolete. We can no longer get the replacement parts for them. There's some asbestos mitigation, which is not surprising given that when our buildings were constructed. And many of the mechanicals are antiquated, and we have a hard time getting parts for them. If you saw the ABC7 interview piece, that's the boiler from Prospect's basement. It's a 1957 boiler. I can tell you if we replace those, there's an image that you'll see in a few slides. Notice the size difference in terms of this space, which also brings a much more efficient system. And some of the air conditioning units on our roofs, you just notice how dated and old they are. So it's time to replace those. And the trouble is, it's not just a unit on the roof. It's sometimes changing an entire system, which is the piping throughout the system, which is why the projects have the magnitude that they do. One of the electrical transformers actually at Prospect High School is so old we have to lock it away. Only trained electricians are able to go in there because the electrical work needs some attention. And then plumbing is aging. Even in Forest View, that was recently renovated. On Mondays or after a long weekend, the water runs brown for the first couple of hours of the day. So we need to change a lot of the pipes and the infrastructure to ensure our water's clean for staff and students. So one of the pools, this is the concrete basin at Wheeling. Wheeling's pool, it lacks the proper ventilation, and that without that proper ventilation, it's starting to impact negatively the concrete structures underneath. We've got this on a high priority list to fix, but that's just an example of some of the images of what we're dealing with and some of the belly of some of our schools that oftentimes you don't see when you just visit them, because our teams do a phenomenal job of keeping our buildings looking very clean, very bright. It's behind that first level of wall in terms of the infrastructure is the area that we're struggling with. I'll talk a little bit more about cafeterias and kitchens at a later portion of the presentation. Some of the parking lots need some attention. The structures themselves are in a decent place, but it's more about the traffic flow in the parking lots. We believe we can improve traffic flow, and there's a couple of schools where buses drop off the same place that parents do. That creates a really heavily trafficked area. That with a little bit of attention, we might be able to reroute and redesign something with the addition of a road around a building or something like that. Some of our athletic facilities are not ADA compliant. That would be the handrails going up the bleachers in our basketball facilities to, you'll notice here in the image where you're outside the track, the top right photo, I want to point a couple of specific things out so you can understand the detail of which we're talking. Where the fence and the bleachers meet the pavement, you'll see a circular concrete area. That's the way that the connection used to be, and now we're going to what's called a curbing process. It's a firmer, more trustworthy, I guess, adhesion to the ground that won't, over time, those areas they pull up. And this fence base here, there are areas where that's beginning to pull away from the asphalt. This particular track is Elk Grove, and what you'll notice, there's a black line there, if you can see that right next to the track, and that should not be raised, but it's raised about 2, in some places 3 inches, and it's a significant tripping hazard for people transitioning from the asphalt onto the track, creating a dangerous situation for athletes and our guests. So we've said this, and we take great pride in not having gone to referendum in over 50 years since we built Buffalo Grove. But it's time. The assessment opened our eyes to some of the significant need and how many areas of our buildings needed to be touched. And the district has just decided now it's time to take the approach. Let's engage with our community to educate them about some of these areas that need attention. But I want to be sure we don't paint the picture that the district hasn't been active over the last 50 years since the last referendum of maintaining our facilities. In fact, just in the last 10 or 15 years, the district has invested over $185 million of our annual budget to capital improvements. In the early 2000s, we expanded libraries on our buildings, additional competition gyms as our populations grew and students were much more active. The Black Box Theater was added over at Rolling Meadows for sure. I think Elk Grove received a science wing in years past to kind of expand some of the science offerings. We've added a music wing at Buffalo Grove. And then as we transition to the type of instruction, in about, I think it was 2010, the district went one-to-one, where our students received their iPads. Well, with what accompanies that is the infrastructure in the ceilings that was a considerable investment. All of the wiring and every classroom having a Wi-Fi access point. So all of that over the years have just been some of the investment the district has made. So I know there was a narrative that was beginning to build that what have we done in the last 50 years? How have we allowed our buildings to deteriorate to this point? And I don't think that's a fair assessment, actually. I think the district has invested tens of millions of dollars over the course of each year, really, for maintenance and upkeep. Our systems are just reaching the place where replacement is becoming our only option. We can no longer fix and achieve the replacement parts that we need. So with that, we're here. And our intention, I said at the beginning, and I want to say it now, we're in a process of community engagement. No decision has been made. Our board has not said we are 100% going to a referendum. The fact of the matter is, we have begun chipping away at this facilities assessment list that emerged from the assessment for the last couple of years with some priority items. But if we're going to tackle a bigger chunk of what's in that list, we're not going to be able to do it with our annual budget, because when you see some of the dollar amounts that we're talking about, we're not able to handle that on our own, which is why we're here to align ourselves with the community in terms of the priority list, and then to ask, where is that level of comfort, if there is comfort, for some additional funding to help us get there. So at this point, we're going to begin that engagement process. I'm going to lay out each of the categories of what we're looking at from the assessment, and then we'll have an opportunity and ask you to be able to prioritize that list, where we'll then begin answering some questions. Phase 1 survey has gone out. We had a great response from the community. They gave us some initial feedback. We are currently in phase 2. Phase 2 consists of a scientific phone survey where randomly our partner called a number of families, over 600 families answered the phone and completed the phone survey, giving us a really great sample. And I believe at last I heard, we were over 750 people had responded to the online survey. I'm really hoping that with tonight's engagement session, as well as on November 3rd, the virtual or in person, we'll get that well over 1,000 people engaging with us to help really guide our path forward. So that's all on the horizon. At this point, I'd like to walk you through what these 10 different categories of projects are. And then after I finish that, I'll pause and ask you to begin prioritizing that list. At that point, we'll take some questions and be able to answer some questions. After that section, we'll then shift into the 3 potential funding levels, and I'll explain that and what the potential tax impact would be. And then we'll allow you to then engage and prioritize those and offer your opinion there before we take some more questions and then wrap up for the evening. So these are the 10 categories, from safety and security to classrooms to STEAM spaces. So we're all on the same page. I know we all love the education acronyms. STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Our mechanicals, which is air conditioners and boilers, the infrastructure, which are windows, walls, and roofs, pools. We added pools to this list because pools in our community has been a topic of conversation, and has been an area of interest for our community for a number of years, and all of our schools don't have pools. So we thought, if we're going to engage with the community, let's understand where this topic is. Innovative spaces. As schools are changing, we need our schools to be more flexible. So a lot of different things can happen in our spaces and use them for different reasons. The main entrances is an opportunity to really grab and welcome guests into the buildings, and then student support areas, as I highlighted before, in our athletic facilities to help them become more ADA compliant and meet today's athletic needs. So area number 1 is safety, security, and accessibility. So this would allow us to improve our fire alarm systems, which is sorely needed. As I said before, if you remember, we can no longer replace some of the parts. The whole system needs to be changed. They are obsolete. We have some asbestos mitigation that needs to occur, and then some ADA compliance that we'd like to accomplish. We place safety and security here. I'd like to point out on the image, the picture on top is a current door in one of our high schools. The picture on the bottom is also from one of our high schools, but what you'll notice on the right-hand side of that door is a proxy card reader. When we say safety, we'd like to take this to the next level to ensure the inside of our buildings are safe and secure, to minimize any damage or the most awful situation that could potentially occur in a school. We can limit that. The outside in, we have secure buildings. All of our schools have secure vestibules that a guest from the outside has to check in and be buzzed in, and all of the mitigation efforts are in place to slow down or prevent an intruder from entering our buildings. On the inside, In order to add the proxy card readers, we have to change the door and the door hardware to be modernized to use that so that we can lock a building down on the inside if we ever had to, with a swipe of a proxy card and a code. So our teachers wouldn't have to go to the door, close and lock it. It takes that step away and makes it happen all the faster. That estimated cost is about $59 million across the district. Our classroom spaces, you saw the photo on top earlier in the presentation. The photo on the bottom is just a computer generated photo. It's not a District 214 classroom, but we wanted to give you an image of what a more modern classroom looks like that allows for that collaborative classroom environment, flexibility for teachers to set the classroom up however they need to for the day's lesson. And I mentioned that rotation model, which is really emerging as really great practice instructionally, where a teacher can meet with a small group of students, have another group of students meeting at a different portion of work, independent work, and the students would rotate the different stations. That's really emerging as a great instructional strategy, and our classrooms could be better set up to accommodate that style of instruction with a classroom kind of like what's in the bottom. To update our facilities with the furniture, the paint, and LED lighting would be about $60 million for this category. The STEAM spaces, and remember STEAM is science, technology, engineering, art, and math, would be updating our science classrooms. Some of our science classrooms are original to the building and are in dramatic need of attention. Our music and our theaters, I already talked about our fine arts, are the pride in fine arts across the district. All of our theaters are in need of some upgrade in terms of lighting and sound systems and capabilities of creating modern performances for our students. The image on the bottom is not a District 214 school, but instead it's what a science classroom could look like, or what a science classroom could look like. What you'll notice is the tables are on casters. They move very easily. The room can be flexible, yet they're constructed with that the type of tabletop that even the chemistry labs can be conducted in this classroom. So any type of science classroom can be flexible enough that all science could happen in each of these classrooms is kind of what we're thinking about what those spaces would be. So to tackle STEAM spaces would be approximately $75 million. The mechanicals, this is where the meat of what I talked about and probably the greatest area of need. The image on the top is actually, it's not an HVAC system, it's a generator, but it's a generator that backs up the building, and this is at Prospect. This generator, if it fails, we can no longer get parts for it. So our backup system goes. So it's in significant need of repair. The picture on the bottom is actually a modern boiler. So if you picture the image that I showed you at the beginning of the monster boilers at Prospect, this is what would be replacing it. Not only is it much more energy efficient, but they have a higher degree of ability to balance the temperature in a large building, which is a complex thing to get a consistent temperature in big buildings. This is our biggest dollar amount and arguably one of the greatest needs, $200 million. Infrastructure is probably the next greatest area. It's the second most expensive at 190 million. This is the prior one would be the warm side. This next one is the dry side. So from our roof replacements down to replacing our windows. Most of our buildings have single pane windows because that's the style and the time of when our buildings were built. Changing those out to be double pane windows would allow us to keep the cold out at a higher degree and the warmth in, and balancing that temperature in the buildings that I mentioned. That is a challenge. So outdating plumbing, I talked about the brown water on Mondays or Tuesdays after a long weekend, and some of that electrical work that would occur, that Prospect electrical box that I talked about. It's $190 million. Pools was that area that we were kind of testing the community to see where this fell, as pools are swim teams are popular in our area. Wheeling's pool is in need of dramatic repair. So with this option, it's priced out to replace Wheeling's pool and then add a pool at Hersey and Rolling Meadows so that all of our schools would have that aquatic facility. But it's not a cheap spend, it's $105 million. Innovative spaces. as I said before, looking to ensure that our spaces are flexible and capable of students that are at lunch or on a blended period or a flex study hall around the building, that they've got collaborative spaces to be and work in so that they can stay in our buildings and use that space. Photo on the top is a kind of an outdated computer lab in terms of the infrastructure, and on the bottom is what some of that innovative space could look like. Approximately $35 million across the district. Main entrances is an area. Also, we were just testing to check and see where the community was. Our schools being built in 1957 through 1972, some of those entrances are a little less dramatic. Whereas now, what you see in the bottom is the new entrance at Barrington High School. It's very welcoming, as well as some of that safety infrastructure. Once you enter, adding some additional layers before accessing the school building could be achieved. Estimated cost there is about $10 million. The student support areas, cafeterias, and kitchens. That's where I'll talk a little bit about cafeterias and kitchens and some of our needs there. Being able to touch our health services areas as well as finish out the student support areas with that wraparound services that I shared earlier, as well as our cafeterias and kitchens. We have a vision for our dining experience for our students to be a little bit more like a food court experience, where they come and update the kitchens to be able to cook meals at a higher level, but then also that experience where it's more of a grab and go, more spacious. And then students don't want to sit on a fold down table with the little discs. We'd like to be able to provide them with tables and chairs, so that not only is the cafeteria space able to support them for lunch, but then it also could support in those flexible areas that I shared a little earlier. Cost of this type of renovation to update some of the infrastructure in our cafeterias and kitchens would be about $78 million. And the athletic facilities, this is some of the significant renovations that I alluded to. This is the same photo on top that I shared earlier. You can actually see it better where the concrete couples with the asphalt. And if you look closely, you can see how that's separating a little bit. And then there's that lip at the track that needs to be corrected, as well as handrails going up and down our bleachers with updated press boxes. Our press boxes are very outdated, and we'd like to strengthen them and make them more stable. But primarily, we want to ensure that we have a great experience for our guests that come in and those that need additional accessibility support that they're taken care of. This would be about $100 million. Okay, that covers the 10 categories of what's on the assessment and the feedback form. To now highlight this, Rich, our partner, is going to drop into the chat a link for a feedback form. Additionally, you're able to scan this QR code if you prefer to do it on your phone. I'll come back to the QR code. What I'm going to ask you to do is if you haven't taken the feedback form online already, and you're going to do it now with us, please do so by ranking the priorities 1 through 10. 1 being the most important project that the district tackle, 10 being that's the least important. Our purpose here is we've done this internally through an exercise of what we think are the most important. We want to ensure that where we go with our planning is aligned with our community, as our schools are obviously a reflection of our community, supported by the local resources that we're afforded. So we want to be sure that our priorities and the community's priorities are aligned. So that's the exercise. Here's the QR code if you'd like to scan that versus going in the chat to click that link. And while I give you a few minutes to tackle that, we'll answer a handful of questions while you work through this. This is what the projects look like and what your form will look like. While people work on that, Mr. Maggi would be happy. I'll be happy to answer some questions or call upon the team to do the same.
Thanks, Dr. Rowe. We have received some questions that have come in. So the first question is, property taxes are already high in Cook County. How is the district considering that reality?
Well, as I said kind of at the beginning, I'm happy to expound upon that. They are high. They are high. And And the reality is our sender districts have gone to referendum in recent years that it escalates that and almost makes like schools continue to ask for more, and that's not something that we take lightly. Um, I think the reality is the funding structures and mechanisms in the state of Illinois are that school districts are funded by property taxes. And these types of projects to get these larger things done, this is the mechanism that we're afforded in Illinois to ask our community if our project list aligns with your priorities and are you willing to spend more. Some of the things that the district has done, we have I'm sure there'll be a question about our fund balance. I can probably tackle that now. The district has a fund balance of 47% of an annual budget. That's about approximately $170 million. We have been consciously spending that fund balance down on these capital projects. If you go back and look at our budget from this year, it was an intentional spend for a deficit using some of those the funds from our fund balance to tackle these capital improvement projects. The board has just adjusted a position paper on fund balance that took us from a 50% minimum down to a 40% minimum before it triggers some action. So we have an additional 10% to play with using these to tackle some of these projects. And that's very intentional and strategic because we live in Cook County. You have not received a second installment of your property tax bills. That is a significant concern and having a major impact on school districts, as obviously the payment of those bills are how we're funded. We are going to, if those bills don't come soon, we're going to have some conversations about spinning that fund balance down below that 40% in order to pay our staff and keep the school district functioning. So that's why we have the fund balance and maintain that 40% threshold is for a rainy day that unfortunately we're just in right now because of the process error at Cook County that is causing a delay in those tax bills.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Roll.
Mr. Maggie, actually, if I could, I would actually add to that some of the intentional things we're doing around energy efficiency. Mr. Yuli's office, as well as Annetta Mistak, our director of operations, we've really want to become an energy efficient district where green is something that we take very seriously. And I mentioned it before, but from transitioning from halogen to LED lighting to modernize systems and these new systems that we'd like to move to of heating and cooling the building, as well as that we're currently out for RFP investigating solar power at Rolling Meadows. Those efforts are intentional to try and shift how we spend our money on energy so that it stays in the classroom with our teachers and students and their experience where we believe it belongs. It's a long process, but it's something we're actively and intentionally pursuing.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rowe. I failed to mention that if there are multiple questions on a topic, we will combine them, but you can also email in your questions for follow-up after this forum to info@d214.org. Let's see. Would some District 214 schools be eligible for window replacement funding through the O'Hare Airport Noise Project?
That's a good question. If Dr. Attaway is our liaison on that O'Hare noise project, I know that Elk Grove did get some windows replaced a handful of years ago. I'm not sure if any other school falls within that jurisdiction or where that is. Dr. Attaway, do you have any information on that?
I think that Elk Grove may be the only one that falls within. Like you said, it was completed in October of 2012. There was about 15.6 million spent to upgrade the sound insulation there. I believe that O'Hare is starting to wrap up its school sound insulation program, but that's definitely something that we can check into for our other buildings just to make sure that they don't qualify.
I appreciate that question.
There's been a few questions around the Buffalo Grove maintenance and outdoor projects there. Can you touch upon what the district is doing regarding the athletic fields?
Oh, absolutely. So Buffalo Grove's the project that we are nearing completion at Buffalo Grove actually had very little to do with enhancing the athletic experience. It was a significant water drainage issue. the Buffalo Groves baseball team had not been able to play on their baseball field consistently for the better part of, man, maybe more than 5 years, if not 10, because there was a major drainage issue, stormwater issue in that area. So that project installed some additional drain tiles and funneled all of the water into a 5 million gallon underground concrete structure that filtered the water to the stormwater detention area. So we essentially created another detention area that allowed those the playing surfaces to be utilized. Additionally, by adding the auxiliary turf field, we expanded the ability for soccer and lacrosse and PE classes to have more outdoor space. Updated new tennis courts where we relocated those. That will actually ultimately, we expect to gain a little bit of parking, a very small amount of parking that will be enhanced, which I know is sorely needed there. And then softball was also the beneficiary because of some drainage issues. So it was not about updating just to update facilities. We were solving a stormwater issue.
Few questions here about the assessment itself. Who conducted the assessment, and then what was the basis for the construction costs used in the assessments?
Sure. Mr. Yulee, if you wouldn't mind coming on. Archon Architects conducted the assessment, but can you talk a little bit about the assessment and who was involved and how we achieved those numbers?
Yeah, sure. It's been about 3 years, I think, since we initiated that facility assessment. And I think first and foremost, it was about to obtain, data to inform our decision-making moving forward, a site condition assessment, tapping into our district engineers who've been with us for many, many years, the architects themselves, and then our construction management company, Pepper Construction. So that team, we call our owner architect team, came together to do this assessment. And then they, based on age, condition, life expectancy, maintenance plans, they come up then with a replacement cycle and number in today's dollars. And then we apply an industry 5% escalator as we move year to year to help, get an idea of those costs moving forward.
There's been a few questions here just about how does the district budget for these on an annual basis, or even if it does, or some of these questions are asking that in terms of the capital projects.
Sure thing. Dr. Attaway, if you want to jump back on and talk about the budgeting process, that'd be great.
Sure. So our capital projects are budgeted for in 2 different places in our budget. In Fund 20, or operations and maintenance, that's where you'll find most of our typical repairs and the smaller day-to-day items. The larger items that you'll see, like some of the things that Dr. Rowe talked about, some of the larger capital projects that have happened recently would be in Fund 60, which is the capital projects fund. In the past few years, we've budgeted around 20 to 30 million, but it's varied from year to year. Some of that has come from transferring some of the operating budget, some of the day-to-day budget from Fund 20 over to Fund 60. So we're using our annual budget to pay for some of that. Some of it, as Dr. Rowe mentioned, has been draining down our fund balance because we want to make sure that we're using the district's resources first before we ask the community for anything.
All right. Dr. Rowe, if we can continue out the presentation, and then we'll come back for the additional.
Yeah, I think the only thing, Patrick, I'd like to add is I think where we'd like to see ourselves stay financially beyond these projects is in that 20 to 30, maybe even 25 to 30 annually, so that we stay on top of these things moving forward. And because maintenance will be a really key factor in driving everything forward. So we want to really create that consistent amount, if possible, as we drive past this set of projects. But sure thing, we'll continue on with the next phase. So the next phase gets us into the funding levels and those funding level priorities. There are 3, and as I said at the beginning, I want to reiterate now, there's not a significance to the dollars that are listed here. They're ballpark dollar figures. Depending on the feedback we receive in this portion of the engagement, we'll take the priorities and narrow that down. And the next phase will not have 10 priorities on there. It'll be a much more focused conversation with real dollars to it. But we need to know where you as a community may feel comfortable or may not feel comfortable talking about these dollars, so that way we don't overshoot and we're responsive to the feedback we're getting. So there are 3 funding levels as well as a do not fund option when you get to the next question we'll ask. So the low funding level would help us accomplish some of those improvements. So at $400 million, the average tax impact for a family that lives in a median home in our school district with just under $400,000 home is just under $200 a year at $198 a year. This is built on against a 25-year bond issuance. So that obviously that number would fluctuate depending on whatever length of the term is, but it's on a 25-year cycle, as I'm sure that'll be a question. The medium level of funding is $600 million. Just the same size home, about $310 per year of a tax impact. And the high level is $800 million. And again, that approximate tax impact would be $421 a year for that $400,000 home. And again, I really want to read it. There's not a major significance to the specific dollars. We're just trying to gauge, where that sweet spot may be. So now to the next phase of feedback, return to that same feedback form or the QR code and rank by priority, 1 through 4, your highest to your lowest. And again, one of those choices is no additional funding for schools. So, as one of the questions alluded to, we understand not only are property taxes in Illinois and especially Cook County high, but the state of the economy today, there's some uncertainty, and we want to recognize that. We're not walking into this with our eyes closed. We're walking into it transparently and openly, having a conversation with the community about where we are, so we can plan our future. So with that, while you take that portion of the survey, Patrick, are there any other questions that we might be able to answer while we wait?
Yes, there are. Let's see here. Can you please define community engagement? Is it current District 214 families or only or all District 214 taxpayers? How's this feedback going to be used? That's first.
Sure. Good question. It's not currently it's not just District 214 families. It's all residents within the District 214 boundaries. The postcard that you all received went to residents across our boundaries, not just our families.
Why are so many things need to be fixed, improved, need immediate attention right now? Where the building's not maintained properly throughout the years. Can you talk a little bit about the capital projects program?
Sure, absolutely. Mr. Yulia, I may phone a friend on some of this, but I'll start by saying the reason it appears as if there are so many projects that need to be done now is because we took the step to gather the data, as Chris said. We had the facilities assessment conducted that painted a picture of the entire district from roofs to HVAC to windows to plumbing and to electrical work to give us a sense of where everything is so that we could begin really prioritizing how we're spending our dollars. The district has a long history of maintenance. We're very proud of the custodial maintenance team, that we do a lot of projects in-house on our own with a really talented group of people that keep our buildings running. And honestly, they're the reason why our facilities are functioning at the level that they are for as long as they have, because they've maintained these systems. I think the reason why it seems like it's so significant right now is the age of our buildings and this wholesale system replacement that we're talking about. It's repiping and rewiring some of the HVAC systems, the whole system, not just replacing a singular air handler. It's converting the system to a more modern system, which is why I think the dollar amounts are so significant. Mr. Yulia, I don't know if you'd have anything to add, or if you think I answered that question thoroughly enough.
I think you're spot on.
Okay. Dr. Rowe, regarding the community engagement process, question on, will you share the survey results?
I believe that, yes, absolutely. The plan will be that the survey results will be shared with our board on November 13th. Our partners, E.O. Sullivan, will be present to walk our board through the entire phone survey and online survey. And then we have a website dedicated to this process in our about section under facilities that the results can be posted there.
Okay, can you talk about, are there other ways that the district can approach getting money? There's some questions around advertising or sponsorships, going after grants for like desk chairs, flexible spaces.
Sure, and there are some for some of those things. We have, you know, in my opinion, one of the best grant managers that I've encountered in our fiscal department. We are very active in terms of pursuing grants. A lot of our pathways programs are a result of grant money and grant work. In terms of funding through, what was the first part of that question again, other than grants, Patrick?
Sponsorship advertising?
Oh, that's right. Thank you. The reason why we started the conversation around sponsorship and advertising really centered around creating another avenue for revenue. The reality is we don't anticipate sponsorship and advertising to be able to produce the volume of dollars that we would need to tackle some of these. However, it is an alternate source of revenue that can supplement them and help long term. Those dollars we're committing to bringing those dollars back in to continue to enhance across the district where the need lives, not just at the school that generates the dough, but where the need exists.
What kind of improvements need to be made to the labs, art rooms, theaters that would make them more safe and accessible?
Sure. Well, I think the science labs in some of the building, I think Buffalo Grove stands out as I believe it's original to the building. Some of the others have been touched a little bit, but they're just so outdated and small and not flexible. If you remember back to when we were in high school and the science lab portion and the classroom portion were in separate places in the classroom. And that really restricts what can happen in the classroom, as well as then the materials and the desktop function of what projects can be done in those areas. It's time for an update. Some of them are 75 years old.
What tier?
I can give more examples. In the theater, for instance, I remember walking into Hersey's Theater and they were enhancing some of the sound with some portable speakers attached to the front of the stage. It's time to update some of those facilities, and some of it we can handle on our own, and some of it we just, if we're going to do it in grander scale, we'll just need additional financial support in order to accomplish that. But they need some, from seat replacement to lighting and sound are major issues in our theaters. Ms. Yule, I don't know if there's more specifics that you may have that I didn't cover.
Can you talk about if the district were to go for a referendum, how does it work over time? Is it a new amount for next year and all future years? If people voted for a lower amount, how will that work long term on lesser priority items? And some of the questions like, what are the payback periods on these projects?
Sure. Let's see, Dr. Adaway, I may need a little bit of help on this one, but the way I'm going to try and answer that question would be like, say we had, the 400 million was the route that we went, and that was an approved referendum. We would not issue the entire amount in one fell swoop. It would be chunks to manage projects annually. So it would be a gradual buildup to get to that total dollar amount associated with the bigger number, because we have a certain window of time we'd have to spend the dollars that we extend a bond for. What was quoted on our images was for 25 years. However, that may not be the best route to go. It'd be further on in the engagement level period with the community of how many years and what is the adjustment in dollar amount that people would be comfortable with. It's not certainly not a set dollar amount. We're not committed to only that window of time. So I'm not sure. Did I answer enough of that question, Patrick, or do you think there needs to be further?
I think so, unless Dr. Adaway has anything to add.
No, I just want to put a little specificity to that. So if a referendum were to be put on the ballot and if it passed, we have 5 years to issue all of the debt that has been approved by the taxpayers. So that's that window of time. It doesn't all need to be done at one time. As Dr. O mentioned, it can be done in chunks over that 5-year period. But once we complete a single issuance, we have 3 years to spend 85% of that money. So once we issue debt, we essentially have 3 years to complete the projects that that debt was issued for. But we have 5 years total to issue all of the debt that would have been approved at the referendum.
So whatever number is approved, smaller chunks would be issued at different times based on the scope of whatever project we're tackling.
Okay. Are there plans for green roofs after replacement to mitigate heat?
Well, that's a good question. We have actually, currently we are replacing the roof over a building at Forest View. And the material that they're using to replace that roof is a white material that reflects the sun, obviously, and is a reflective material that does support a cooler building and help with some of the energy efficiency. It's done 100% intentional to reduce that energy cost. That's the new wave of the flat roof surface. Mr. Yulee, I don't know if there's other details that are worth adding, but having seen that done in my prior district, it is beneficial, and I believe we will reap some financial benefit from going that route in our schools.
Can someone talk a little bit about how we rent out facilities? There's a couple questions here, like the pools, the gyms, that type of thing, for revenue.
Sure. Famously, one of our board members has shared it as we're talking about pools and renting, as a matter of fact. Our philosophy is that water should always be moving in our pools. And Mr. Yulee and his team do a really nice job of maximizing pool rentals so that our feeder programs, whether it be Core or Alligators or the park districts, have access to our pools. Maybe not at the most ideal time, but they have access to our pools, and they are used all day, every day. We use them in our classes. And in terms of gyms and gym space, and when our students aren't using them for their athletics and activities, we definitely do rent those spaces out to some of our feeder programs and community groups. That's all assessed through our operations team. We have a rental division in the operations department.
So this question here goes on the financing front. Can this be accomplished through bond issues instead of real estate tax increases?
It's a good question. Stradaway.
So they're pretty much one and the same. Whenever the district issues debt, unless it's a very specific kind of debt that we use our operating fund to pay off, the vast majority of the long-term debt that a school district can issue does go towards property taxes. That is the primary mechanism that is used to pay the debt off. There is one type of debt that we would then use the operating fund to pay off instead of levying additional tax revenue for that. But that would need to be able to, it essentially acts like a mortgage payment, and we would need to be able to fit that within our current operating budget in order to issue that.
Okay, let's see. Have we thought about tariffs in regards to these projects?
You know, we actually we have early on when the tariffs were first being issued, we had conversations with our architect and our construction manager about what projects should we prioritize before they go in place, or what may be impacted. And we slowed down some of our spend until we saw the impact. We narrowed the focus and actually held back on some of our projects. Fortunately, we haven't seen a dramatic impact of tariffs on school-related things. Elevators was one of the areas I got feedback on from one of our partners that we were being impacted by tariffs. But the cost of everything, in terms of especially government construction, is higher. But I can't say with certainty that tariffs are negatively impacting them to a great degree. Am I right, Mr. Yulee, or is there something new you've learned?
Currently, that is the case. I will add that, we utilize a capital planning software system that we can enter in a estimated tariff amount for that following fiscal year. But again, our team of experts are in the industry, and they keep a pulse on that issue for sure.
Again, on financing, what is our tax base? And this question here specifically, how many taxpayers do we have?
I'm not sure of the exact number of taxpayers that we have. The total property value in the district for tax year 23 is just under $11.5 billion. We do not have the total property value for 2024 yet. That is one of the things that we're waiting for from Cook County still.
Okay,
But maybe to put a number, we have approximately 300,000 residents in our school district boundaries.
all right. Trying to see what else here. Dr. O, there's been a couple questions here regarding that football team that in the Arlington Park redevelopment, the Bears. Could you offer a comment about
Sure.
the topic?
Absolutely. So in December of 2024, District 214, let me back up a little bit. District 214 is one of 3 school districts that have boundaries that cover part of Arlington Park. District 211 and then District 15, the elementary district. In December of 2024, our school boards, as well as the Arlington Heights, the Village of Arlington Heights board and the Chicago Bears, all approved a memorandum of understanding. And that memorandum of understanding shaped how we would work together if they're able to have their dream become a reality of building at Arlington Park. And what's important about that for all of our community to really understand is it outlines that if that property produces students that come and attend our schools, we want to be able to educate them at the highest level. But if that occurs under some form of a tax incentive program or a TIF that we're more accustomed to now, that those dollars follow the students so that we can educate them without a burden on our community and school district. We achieved that in that memorandum of understanding, where if a student comes and attends our schools, that's in the Rolling Meadows boundary, that the per pupil expenditure would come with that student from some combination of incentive dollars or developer dollars or dollars from the Bears, so that the student would be educated. If enough homes were constructed that warranted an expansion of our high school or the need to build a new school, those dollars would also come from that development and not be a burden of the school district or the local taxpayer through the school district means. The other achievement that we accomplished in that memorandum of understanding is really about the seat at the table, talking about those tax incentive programming, and on a regular TIF district, which is a mechanism that villages use to help with infrastructure. The school district would have a greater say in is it working and can it work for us, and a larger voice in terms of percentage and weighted voting. So we accomplished some pretty big things. Most importantly, because at the time, all we were operating on was an image that had a lot of single family homes on that original diagram we saw. And even the more recent ones we saw, I want to say it was like 1,100 homes that were being predicted. The Village of Arlington Heights is committed as a partner of zoning that to be more like downtown Arlington Heights, where it's condos, and that produces very few students. But we wanted to be sure that we were in a position that if it produced students, we were going to be in a strong position to educate them at the very highest level with all of our other students, without that burden falling unduly somewhere else. Beyond that, I'm not sure where I can go, because it remains to be seen if that project is going to be able to come to fruition. We're hopeful that it will, but that's up to Springfield at the moment.
Okay, just some more questions around kind of the funding mechanism itself. Specifically around if the board, after this community engagement process, were to decide to go for a referendum, it's specifically the time period. Is it 20, 25, 30? How is that paid over time?
It really just depends on it depends on a number of factors. That the dollar amount that we're willing to absorb for the faster payback. It can be as short as 10 years. I don't know, Dr. Attaway, if you want to talk a little bit more about that, but 25 years is what the model that we showed you tonight was built on. We'll be able to adjust that and show 10 or 20 in future presentations once we have more specific targeted data to work with.
Yeah, I think what you said is spot on. There are a number of factors that would go into the term of any type of long-term debt that was issued. The maximum amount that we can issue is 30 years for each issuance. So if we stagger this out over 5 years, in theory, we can do this over 35 years because the final issuance can come in year 5, and then we have 30 years beyond that. The one thing that we have to consider, it's just like looking at any other loan that you might take on personally or mortgage, is the longer the term, the more interest you pay. So while it does spread out those payments over a longer term, which makes the principal payment much smaller, it does increase the interest payment over time. So that's something that we'll be talking with our financial consultants about, our bond counsel, and that would need to be something that the board weighed in on.
Okay, Dr. Rowe, what will we be doing with all the comments and questions that are being submitted, all the online forms?
Sure.
What's happening with all this?
All right, so all the questions and then that were submitted tonight, we'll be able to pull those from this presentation, and be able to preserve those. If your question was not answered specifically, or you have an additional question that comes to you after tonight's presentation, please email Patrick Maggi at district214.org, or you can submit something at info@district214.org. And we will get answers and get back to you. As I said before, please keep an eye on our webpage. There's a facilities improvement planning under the About section that you can monitor the survey results, as well as kind of our planning and where we are in the process. Anything else, Mr. Maggi?
I believe that's it for now, Dr. Rowe.
Dr. Attaway, Mr. Yulee, anything else to add? Well, I would just sincerely like to thank everyone who joined tonight's presentation, giving us a portion of your evening to learn a little bit more about our needs and offer your feedback is incredibly important to us. It falls, in a good place and not on deaf ears, I promise you. And as I said before, we don't enter this conversation lightly, and we want to be sure that the engagement is really two-way, and your feedback is helping drive the path that we take. So genuinely, I thank you for the time that you gave us and the feedback this evening. And I wish you well. Hope to talk to you all soon. Thank you.